Said it so many times today, but he's your favourite fighter's favourite fighter. One of my favourite fighters to watch him. I hope when I beat him he doesn't retire. I hope he has some more fights. I hope he doesn't retire once I beat him, but that's what's going to happen. I'm going to beat him just like I beat Michael Chandler. Beat him to the punch on the feet, ruin his legs with kicks. I'm going to damage his calf, and if it does go to the ground, it'll be over even faster.
Dustin Poirier just made a prediction about UFC 34 that's going to shock every single fight fan who hears it. We're talking about a take so unexpected, so against the grain of what everyone's expecting, that you'll question everything you thought you knew about this massive interim lightweight title fight. This isn't just some casual opinion from a retired fighter looking for attention. This is coming from one of the most respected veterans in the game, someone who's been in there with the absolute best. And what he's saying about Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett is completely flipping the script on how people are viewing this fight.
One of the few that I've heard say that. Can you tell us why?
I just think he's been in those 25-minute fights. He's been in dog fights before.
Here's what's absolutely wild about Poirier's breakdown. He's zeroing in on something that most analysts are completely overlooking, and that's Gaethje's experience in those brutal, grueling 5-round wars that break fighters mentally and physically. We're not talking about just any experience here. This is the kind of deep, primal knowledge that you can't teach in any gym, no matter how elite your training partners are. Gaethje has been through absolute hell in that octagon, and he's not just survived, he's thrived when things get desperate. When your lungs are burning, when your legs feel like concrete, when every instinct tells you to quit, that's where Gaethje finds another gear. Poirier is openly questioning whether Pimblett can even contain Gaethje in the striking exchanges, and here's the kicker. He doesn't think the British fighter has the wrestling to take Gaethje down and keep him there. This puts Pimblett in an absolutely terrifying position where he's forced to stand and trade with one of the most violent strikers in UFC history. The core problem, according to Poirier, is that Pimblett needs to maintain perfect composure for 25 full minutes, picking his spots carefully and avoiding those prolonged exchanges that play right into Gaethje's hands. That kind of fight IQ under championship pressure. It usually takes years to develop, and Gaethje has considerably more knockout power and an unshakable willingness to walk through fire to land his own fight-ending shots.
And I don't think Paddy's going to be able to get him down, so he's going to have to fight with him. Unless Paddy can stay super disciplined for 25 minutes, stay at distance, pick his shots. Justin's just a bigger puncher, and he'll put himself in harm's way to land one of those shots. And it's tough to stay away from it for 25 minutes.
Do you think that the UFC wants Paddy to win?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, because Justin's talking about retirement, and Paddy's still young, and they can continue to build him. There's a bunch of fights we haven't seen with Paddy. So it's more marketable if Paddy wins.
And so how do you see it playing out?
I think Justin's...
But wait, it gets even more interesting because Alexander Volkanovski is seeing this fight completely differently. The former featherweight king isn't just picking Pimblett to win. He's predicting the British fighter will capture that interim title. And his reasoning is actually brilliant when you break it down. Volkanovski has been watching Pimblett's entire UFC journey, and he's noticed something that critics keep missing. Every single time people count Pimblett out, every time the pressure mounts and the doubters start swarming, this guy responds by executing his game plan perfectly and silencing everyone. Volkanovski specifically pointed to that Michael Chandler fight as proof that Pimblett can stick to his strategy even when he's getting hurt and pressured. That fight showed something crucial about Pimblett's mental toughness. When Chandler was unloading everything he had, when it looked like Pimblett might crumble, he stayed composed and found a way to win. Volkanovski believes that same adaptability and mental strength will be absolutely vital against someone as unpredictable and dangerous as Gaethje. It's not just about having a game plan, it's about executing it when everything's falling apart around you.
I'm going to go with Paddy, you know what I mean? There's been a couple of times where I thought Paddy's had big tests in front of him and he's passed them. And, you know, he showed me in his last fight he can really stick to a game plan. And he's going to need that with a Gaethje. So I'm going to go Paddy.
Now here's where things get really spicy. Colby Covington is absolutely furious about the betting odds favoring Pimblett, and he's not holding back about it. Speaking to Submission Radio, Covington made it personal, saying he'd put serious money on Gaethje if active fighters were allowed to bet on fights. That tells you everything about his confidence level. Covington sees this massive public backing for the British fighter as completely misguided, and he's viewing Gaethje as a uniquely tough and determined opponent who's going to push Pimblett beyond anything he's faced before. But this isn't just about picking winners and losers for Covington. He sees this fight as the ultimate litmus test for Pimblett's legitimacy. In Covington's mind, this will definitively prove whether Pimblett genuinely belongs among the elite, or if his rapid rise was partly manufactured by hype and marketability. That's a brutal assessment, but it highlights what's really at stake here. This isn't just an interim title fight. It's about proving whether the UFC's Golden Boy can back up all the promotion with actual elite-level performance when it matters most.
If he gets it done, it's because Justin's just so shot. He's been in so many wars. You know, he's been around the company so long, and that knockout to Max Holloway, he just hasn't recovered from. So if he gets a win, then yeah, there. But this is seems like a smash spot. Like, if I was able to bet fighting, which we're not allowed to because the feds got involved because that moron coach James Krause screwed it up for all of us. But this seems like a smash spot on Gagey because everybody's on, and all the public is driving the money line for Paddy Pimblett to be the favorite. But you know, I think Justin's still a tough dog, and he's going to come out there and give his all, and he doesn't want to lose this fight. This could be his last fight if he loses. So, you know, I think he's going to put Paddy to the test. And, you know, Paddy, you know, usually has to control the wrestling aspect, put guys to the ground to get his submission and to get his striking game working. So, you know, I don't know. Justin's shot on one hand. They're trying to give him an easy win on a silver platter to Paddy to build him up. You know, he's got a little bowl cut and a little mouth, and they think he's the next star. So, I don't know. It's a tough fight to judge. You know, how much is left in the tank for Justin versus a guy that's absolute nobody that hasn't actually accomplished anything in the sport yet. We shot.
And get this, Dan Hooker is echoing those exact same concerns, strongly disputing Pimblett's status as the betting favorite. Hooker, who's always been a sharp analyst of the game, is specifically targeting Geeth's takedown defense as a massive problem for Pimblett's grappling-heavy approach. He didn't mince words, flat out stating that he doesn't think Pimblett should be favored because Geeth's takedown defense is too sharp, and he doesn't expect Pimblett to get the fight to the ground. Here's the really damaging part of Hooker's analysis. He pointed out that Pimblett hasn't often fought elite fighters during their prime, which is a critical distinction that veteran fighters always notice. Meanwhile, Bilal Mohammed jumped into this discussion on his YouTube channel and ended up favoring Geeth as well, but for a completely different reason. The former welterweight title contender identified a recurring weakness in Pimblett's game that could be absolutely fatal against someone like Geeth. Mohammed is talking about Pimblett's habit of absorbing big shots during striking exchanges, something that becomes incredibly dangerous when you're facing an opponent with Geeth's knockout power. Those defensive lapses that Pimblett has gotten away with against lesser competition will eventually prove detrimental against elite strikers. And Mohammed believes this is the fight where that weakness finally gets exposed.
Don't get pulled into chaos. Don't get pulled into a grappling or wrestling or showing that you could do what he can do better, right? I think on the feet, Justin, you have a really big advantage. And if you're patient, you're smart, you systematically break him down, kind of like how you did against Tony Ferguson, it'll be an easy night for you. For Paddy, I think you got to create chaos. You got to wrestle as much as possible. Yeah, he has college wrestling accolades. This isn't college wrestling. This is UFC. This is fighting. This is punches. This is grappling. This is everything involved. So if I'm Paddy, I'm going to shoot in early and test it early. Because when you guys are both dry, that's where it comes. We've seen guys like Habib catch a low kick and shoot off it, or as he's pulling that kick back, shoot off it, pushing him to the fence. We've seen him get pressured. We don't want to get hit by him. Everybody who gets hit by him says how hard he hits. He's one of the hardest hitters in the division. So let's not test your chin. Let's not say Scousers don't get knocked out, right? We don't need to do that. I think your path to victory is clear. It's on the ground. I think you will have a big advantage if it gets into those hard grappling exchanges. And especially if you get multiple takedowns on him. You were able to control Michael Chandler, who's another college wrestler, on the ground pretty easily, mounted him. And you say you want to do the same thing with Justin? Let's put that plan to action. My pick, I think I'm going to go with Justin. I think Paddy just gets hit a lot on the feet. Yeah, he's pretty much clean his last two victories, but Jared Gordon had some clean shots on him, big hooks, big crosses. And Justin kind of like boxes, kind of like Jared. Clean, he likes dirty boxing, he likes inside boxing. Justin's very good there, so I think I'm going to pick Justin in this one. I don't know if he knocks him out or finishes him. I do think it kind of would be a decision. I'm going on the Tony Ferguson type fight because Paddy's tough. He's not hard to break. I mean, it's not easy to break.
But hold up, because Michael Chandler brings a perspective that nobody else can match, having actually shared the cage with both fighters. After losing to Pimblett back in April, Chandler gained first-hand knowledge of abilities that he believes are frequently undervalued by casual fans and even some analysts. He openly acknowledges that the Liverpool native holds far more skill and depth than most people realize, having felt that pressure personally. However, when forced to make an actual prediction for this upcoming clash, Chandler still picks Justin Gaethje, and his reasoning is fascinating. It's all about Gaethje's wealth of experience and incredibly complete, well-rounded skill set that represents an entirely different class of opponent than anything Pimblett has faced in his professional MMA career. Chandler even went further, suggesting that Gaethje might potentially unify the championship afterward, and he praised Ilia Topuria as possibly the top fighter in MMA today. What Chandler is really highlighting here is how incredibly complex and Shark Tank-like the lightweight division has become, with multiple gifted contenders all making valid claims to the top spot. In his view, Pimblett is stepping into a level of competition that he simply hasn't experienced yet, and that inexperience at the championship level could be the deciding factor.
More skilled, more experienced, I think better fighter all around, Justin Gaethje. But I also have been on record and said that Paddy Pimblett is better than a lot of people think he is. You know, because of his haircut and the way he talks. And when I fought him, he's better than a lot of people give him credit for. He's got long reach, good kicks, pretty darn patient and composed in there. But Gaethje's a whole different animal. So if I had to bet, I'd go Justin Gaethje, interim champion, and then he beats Ilia Topuria later on.
Now listen to this part, because Sean O'Malley is going completely against the grain with a bold endorsement of Paddy Pimblett for the interim championship victory. The charismatic bantamweight champion sees this matchup as an optimal stylistic encounter for the British Armand to truly shine, and he's not just picking a winner. O'Malley went a step further with a specific prediction that Pimblett will find his opening during the second round and capitalize by locking in a rear-naked choke. This highlights O'Malley's incredible faith in Pimblett's ground game and his instincts for recognizing when opponents become vulnerable during the chaos of battle. O'Malley firmly believes those submission skills and that ability to seize the moment on the mat will be the ultimate difference maker when everything's on the line. It's a prediction that flies in the face of everyone focusing on the striking battle, and it shows that some elite fighters are seeing opportunities that others are missing. The question is whether Pimblett can actually get the fight to the ground long enough to implement that game plan.
I don't know, dude. I'm kind of leaning towards Paddy. But the way he does get hit with left hooks, he looks so good against Michael Chandler. Paddy's got a lot of ways to win.
He's a scouser.
He's a scouser. Scousers don't get knocked out, you mushroom.
He KO'd Dustin with a head kick too. The fight before the Max Holloway one, which is pretty impressive.
True. So he got, man.
Probably Paddy rear naked.
I think, Paddy.
Here's where it gets absolutely wild, because Matt Brown is voicing frustration that extends far beyond just fight predictions. The veteran is delivering a brutal examination of modern UFC matchmaking philosophy, and he's not happy about what this specific fight represents. Brown sees Pimblett rapid, almost meteoric rise to an interim title shot as completely detached from genuine competitive achievement, arguing that it's more about social media following and marketability than actual proven performance against elite competition. He sharply contrasted this with Arman Tsarukyan, a fighter who systematically defeated every contender put in front of him, consistently proving himself against the division's most dangerous established fighters. Despite that absolutely stellar record, Tsarukyan somehow found himself completely overlooked for title consideration, while Pimblett received the golden opportunity. This critique reflects much broader concerns about how championships are contested now, where popularity sometimes appears to outweigh actual accomplishment inside the cage. Brown's frustration is shared by many hardcore fans who feel like the sport's competitive integrity is being compromised for entertainment value and pay-per-view sales.
And Paddy's more popular, you're getting it over Arman.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, right? And that's, I mean, God, I hate how I kind of get into this too much, but I mean, that's really that's the definition of, a monopoly where a single promoter owns the title and the rankings. And it's not a good thing for the sport, in my opinion. And I have to question what it's going to do for the longevity of the sport. I don't think in the short term it's really going to make a big difference, right? It's going to sell the next fight, right? It's going to sell the next pay-per-view. But trends tend to come and go, right? Fads tend to come and go. At some point, like, you know, to have staying power and lasting power, I think it requires, you know, a meritocracy-based system. It's going to require, you know, some, you know, if you want to bring in guys like Armin Tsarukyan or Movsar Evloev, not always mess up how I say his name. You know, you want to bring in these Olympic wrestling level guys. I mean, they don't want to have to go out there and put on some ridiculous show to become a champion. They don't want to have to go on Instagram and start a podcast and make you know, whatever kind of skits on social media and this silly kind of stuff. Like, they just want to be a world champion because they want to be the best athlete. And that's what makes me wonder how the staying power is going to be, right? When you're dealing with guys that are, you know, legitimate athletes that want to be legitimate athletes, and they're getting passed up by guys that are entertainers.
But here's the kicker. Juraj Faber is backing Justin Gaethje with arguments that make perfect sense when you break them down. The former WEC champion sees Gaethje as a fighter who comes alive once fights turn into chaotic, disordered brawls, showing a complete fearless readiness to exchange blows just to connect with his own devastating attacks. Despite recognizing the inherent risk from Pimblett's submission abilities, Faber believes Gaethje's extensive division wrestling background provides the crucial defensive foundation needed to survive those ground battles. This solid wrestling base should allow Gaethje to consistently guide exchanges back to the stand-up, which is where he maintains distinct advantages and feels most comfortable unleashing his power. Faber's analysis is focusing on something critical that many people overlook about Gaethje. Yes, he's known as a violent striker, but his wrestling credentials are legitimate, and that defensive grappling could be the key to neutralizing Pimblett's biggest advantage. If Gaethje can stuff takedowns and keep this fight standing, his path to victory becomes much clearer.
And Justin Gaethje, who do you favor in that fight?
I gotta go with Gaethje. I feel like he's the one that loves to like get down and throw fist for fist. And he's also got the Division I wrestling to negate some of the biggest skill sets of Paddy. Paddy's like a very dominant grappler when it comes to submissions. I think Gaethje has the tools.
And get this perspective from Tony Ferguson, who's faced both fighters during his extensive UFC tenure and brought up something fascinating that most analysts are ignoring. Ferguson is talking about drive as a crucial factor that won't show up in stats or skill breakdowns. He thinks Gaethje's complex past, all those interim belts and unachieved title aspirations, might actually create significant mental pressure that could impact his performance on the biggest stage. In stark contrast, Ferguson believes Pimblett's burning desire to capture his first major championship could produce an incredible energy that drives athletes beyond their usual boundaries. Ferguson considers both fighters beatable based on his own experience with them, but he's surprisingly favoring the fresh face in Pimblett, who's chasing that first title with everything to prove. This mental game aspect is something that doesn't get discussed enough in fight analysis, but veteran fighters like Ferguson understand how much psychology plays into championship fights. Sometimes the hungrier fighter, the one with less to lose, can find that extra gear when everything's on the line.
Paddy's not bad. He's very beatable, and Gaethje's very beatable as well. But when it goes into the passion and how upsetting Justin Gaethje has always been about not getting that real title shot, and they just keep dangling it right there again, Paddy's in for a new treat, right? Paddy's the one that's never fought for a belt. He's going in there. He's going to be trying to, get that stuff. He's going to feel a little bit more fresher. He's going to have that little bit of excitedness in my opinion.
Now for a truly bold prediction. Renato Moicano stepped up with a confident call for Pimblett to win via submission, and his logic is actually compelling when you think about it. Moicano's argument is that unless Gaethje can secure an early knockout, this fight will almost inevitably transition to grappling. And in that realm, Pimblett holds clear advantages. But here's what's really interesting about Moicano's take. He believes the betting markets haven't adequately accounted for the massive disparity in submission skills between these fighters. He thinks the current odds should reflect a much tighter matchup than what sportsbooks are offering, highlighting what he sees as a potential oversight in how people are assessing this bout. Everyone's focusing on the exciting striking exchanges, while significantly undervaluing the grappling dimension that could completely change this fight. Moicano is essentially saying there's value in betting on Pimblett because people are sleeping on his ground game. And if this fight hits the mat for any extended period, Geith could be in serious trouble despite his wrestling background.
Tough matchup, you know. I think 5 rounds. If this is the common take, everybody gonna say that, not only me. But if Justin Gaethje doesn't stop him on the beginning, he's going to lose. I think everybody thinks like that, and I think Paddy Pimblett will beat Justin Gaethje. That's what I think.
Here's where Eddie Alvarez brings a perspective that nobody else can match, and it's absolutely crucial to understanding this fight. After handing Geith his first UFC defeat, Alvarez isn't focusing on talent or technique. He's emphasizing preparation quality as the most important factor in high-level championship bouts. The former lightweight champion explained that Geith imposes a very specific, almost suffocating kind of pressure that sparring partners simply cannot replicate during training camp, no matter how good they are. Alvarez clearly remembers the relentless physical impact, the overwhelming aggression, and the complete lack of breathing room that characterized their fight. He stressed that no amount of practice can entirely prepare a fighter for that reality until they experience it personally under championship lights. This is a massive insight because it suggests that all the game planning in the world might not matter once that cage door closes and Geith starts applying his unique brand of pressure. Alvarez concluded that whichever fighter adjusts quicker once the fight actually starts could secure the victory regardless of all the training camp preparation, and that immediate adaptation under fire could be the deciding factor.
I'm like, the fans don't ever ask for a rematch or anything like that, because that would have never. I'm like, I'm glad. He's unique, man, and he's one of my favorite guys to watch. So like, but if you want to beat Justin Gaethje, you have to. So he's a forward fighter and a pressure fighter that he will stand in the pocket, and he's gonna throw everything he got in that pocket. If you don't meet him, you'll get chewed up. So Paddy, the way to beat a guy who like does this, very violent, aggressive pressure fighter, you have to meet him. You have to throw when he throws. So you got to be brave, and you have to go when he goes in between his shots. If you do that, you got a fair shot. If you don't do that, if you're not brave and courageous and throw when he throws in between his shots, it's going to be a really long night. It's going to be a hard night for you.
Another notable voice backed Pimblett by highlighting what they see as his incredibly complete, well-rounded game. And they specifically mentioned that famous Liverpool chin that's become part of Pimblett's growing reputation. Despite recognizing Geith's position as one of the sport's most dangerous punchers, this analyst believes Pimblett will find his path to victory through seamless transitions between grappling and striking when required. This adaptability, the ability to shift approaches and modify the fight's dynamic, represents a tool that could be absolutely crucial when Pimblett needs to either avoid danger or assert his dominance. His ability to threaten across multiple aspects of MMA forces opponents to make tough decisions about their defensive priorities, constantly keeping them guessing and off balance. It's this versatility that some people believe will be too much for Geith to handle, even with his experience advantage. The question becomes whether Pimblett can actually implement those transitions under the kind of pressure that Geith brings, or if the veteran's intensity will disrupt those game plans before they can develop.
An interim champion basically means the #1 contender. But if Paddy can pull it off, unbelievable. That'll be 4 champs, 2 interims and 2 legit, well 3 legit now with Tom being promoted from the UK that have become champions. And for Justin Gaethje, this is the final go. This is the final crack of the whip. The man's had 2 title fights in the past, Charles Oliveira to Khabib Nurmagomedov, and now he gets to go up against Paddy Pimblett. Now talking about the matchup, of course it is an easier fight for Justin than what it is against Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the greatest of all time. Islam Makhachev, the current pound for pound, and according to many people, a man that is surpassing Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? So in that regard, it is an easier matchup. Will Paddy be able to take him down? Will he dance around the octagon? Yes, he will. Will he try and replicate the game plan of Max Holloway? Of course he will. Who wouldn't try and do that? You aren't going to stand and go toe-to-toe with Justin Gaethje because the man does have knockout power. But underestimate Paddy at your peril.
So here we are, with UFC 34 approaching fast, and this interim lightweight championship fight headlining one of the biggest cards of the year. The entire MMA world is completely split on what's going to happen when these two step into that octagon at T-Mobile Arena. We've got legends like Poirier backing Geeth's experience and pressure, while champions like O'Malley and Volkanovski see Pimblett's adaptability and submission skills as the deciding factors. This fight represents everything that's fascinating and controversial about modern MMA, from questions about legitimate title contention to the clash between old-school grinding and new-school hype. But when that cage door closes, none of the predictions matter. What matters is who can implement their game plan under the brightest lights and biggest pressure of their careers. So here's my question for you. Drop it in the comments. Do you think Pimblett's ground game and adaptability will be enough to overcome Geeth's experience and knockout power? Or is this where the hype train finally gets derailed by elite-level reality? If this breakdown helped you understand what's really at stake in this massive fight, smash that like button, subscribe for more in-depth MMA analysis, and hit that notification bell because this card is going to be absolutely insane. I'll see you in the next one.